authority. So we're actually working within the federation. So within the federation...
That means that somebody, what I'm trying to say is that if nobody else knows that, there is no way you can know if it's correct or not.
Right,
you
right.
have only one source of information.
So that is absolutely correct. If nobody really knows other than the user that this information is correct, then there is no way to check if this information is correct. But then that's where we start looking into multi-factor. If you can tell me that all the credit card numbers associated with this person in the same record have been verified correct, and so then we have a probabilistic argument that all this information is correct, then it is highly likely that this information is correct. But for most of these...
Assuming that the guy lies inconsistently, but if he lies consistently...
Right,
then
right.
I don't see why.
And we have a very strong analysis of such a situation in which if the first time the enrollment is wrong, what do we do? If an adversary registers his social security number with the credit card number of some stolen credit card number, then what do we do? So that's why the security analysis becomes very interesting, because for most of the credentials we would say that there is somebody outside who can actually verify this information. And there is an in-person registration phase also. We say that if this does not work, then we have to look at in-person registration procedure or verification procedure.
So one suggestion that I have is actually have to be more specific about exactly the problem that you're addressing, because you're not addressing the first phase, and that I think is probably the most important. So you have to position whatever your work is doing with respect to these are the assumptions that you are making. I never saw, maybe that's why there's some confusion here, because there is nothing about the assumptions that you are making.
Right, and the paper gives you a very detailed set of what is a security model, what are the assumptions, it gives a step-by-step procedure. Okay, given that these assumptions are true, then we will have either in-person registration, or because for some cases, as Professor Nita Rotaro said, that it's hard to check with an outside authority whether this is correct. But we do account for that in our paper, because it actually is much more complicated than that. If you start looking into even the credit card numbers, they time out over some time. Some things get reissued. Even shared credit card numbers, the husband and wife are using the same credit card number. There are very interesting issues in this aspect where it's not so easy to be able to assert something about a registered value. But the main idea I wanted to present in this presentation is the fact of being able to associate a proof with an attribute. So if you have this proof, then you can use it to give multi-factor authentication.
But usually someone has to prove that what you're trying to prove is right? Yani, if you are trying to say that this integer is greater than 5, it has to be greater than 5 before you prove it, right?
Right.
But what you are trying to say is that there is no one on earth other than the guy owning the number can prove that it's greater than 5.
Right.
In this case, in this scenario.
So as you see over here, the social security number is given as in person. So one can say that this card was shown and this one was registered at the time of registration. So I can be sure that this identifier is really of that person who is registered. So over here, the proof is correct. That if I can prove you that I know the value and this value was registered in person, then one can be pretty sure. But the challenge comes when this is not in person. Then when you're sending a number online and you're not really showing the number, then how do you make sure that this number is correct? And that is a big challenge. And how we do it is by step, how we have to rely on some authority which can prove it. And really, if you take it to the end, it's very difficult unless you go in person, or you have to come to one level where you have to rely on something. You can't keep on building on top of each other. But we can discuss this further in detail later. But the main idea over here is again that if you have some way to prove that this is yours based on some multi-factor, this can actually help a lot in being able to prevent misuse of information outside. Okay. And we show also that without giving the proofs, one cannot really use the actual identifier. So if I want to escape the proof, we show that how we somehow in the protocol mandate the fact that you need to do the correct protocol before you can get to the step of actually providing the credit card number to get the service. Okay? But that's good discussion, and we can elaborate on that. Just a quick note about how to detect duplicates. The question was, if one has already registered some identifier, for example, a credit card number, and somebody else tries to register the same credit card number again, I should be able to detect that. And to do that, you can just put the identifiers, hash it, put it in one table. But if you have thousands of hosts and and a large hash table decentralized, how do you really detect this duplicate? So you can't have a centralized authority again. So to do that, you can have a distributed hash table. This is just one technique that we.
No problem.
Yeah.
You are going to hash the credit card number?
It can be the credit card number.
No
Actually,
one
we're
knows the
hashing.
credit card number, right? In this system, no one knows the credit card number, and it's not displayed to anyone, right?
Right.
So you are assuming that the proofs are the same.
The proofs of each.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
That actually has a very. If you use semantically secure zero knowledge proofs, which add random.
really the same.
Sorry.
If you use the zero knowledge proofs.
If
the
you use
proofs-
deterministic zero knowledge proofs, then then if you commit the same value,
Yes.
it will be the same. But you will have it will be good if you go through it, because this was very interesting, because you can have a brute force attack if you have deterministic commitments, because these are 9-digit numbers, 2 to the 50 computations, a few hours of work, and you can actually break certain commitments. So what do we do to be able to handle that is actually elaborated in some follow-up work. But that is a very good question about what is really the key of these hash tables, and these are not really the hashes of the original identifiers. So there is a way that we randomize it and put it, but that has to go into a little more details. And there are other things too, if one party goes down, or the reliability aspect, and how much redundancy we need in this particular federation. That's really good, though. But there is some basic concept here about adding proofs and not really checking at every step that a user uses it, but at certain points one can check for the validity of this information. So, and also not really releasing this sensitive information by using those zero knowledge proof. Then we can assure the validity of some information in the federation. And as different service providers keep checking the validity, it could be credit card numbers. For some you cannot check, but for those that you can check, one can somehow leverage the validation done at different service providers for the whole federation in itself. So you can have a higher level of assurance. Then we provide a flexible approach, and this is ongoing work of the lazy validation approach in a federation. And then the distributed hash table is something that we're implementing at this point to see how well does it really work in practical federation systems.
So what is your assumption about the members of the federation? What if one member is compromised?
Right.
Ultimately, all these federation members are a server. Then the whole idea is that if you compromise the client, you can compromise anyone.
Right. So the service providers, they can be either compromised or they can be malicious, and in different cases.
So how if that's the case, how will you even verify? I think that nothing works if indeed even one of the server will be compromised.
Actually, it is even if a service provider, the service provider does not really get.
I'm talking about server provider.
Talking about identity provider.
I'm talking about one of the members of your federation who's doing this lazy validation and is maintaining the hash table.
So there is redundancy there, because there's not one service provider and it is the only person who has all this information. So we do replicate information within the service provider. So if n of them are compromised or are not working, then we can do something about it. But that.
How many, for example, how many replicas do you maintain? How many malicious servers can you?
So this